Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this week's show, we're going to be talking about all of this week's Disney Plus and also some of the Star originals that have been released. So that would be like Mighty Ducks. We're talking about 22 versus Earth Assembled and a whole host more. We'll also be talking about some of the big news stories of the week, including Star Plus having some problems down in Latin America, Pixar staff being unhappy about movies heading to Disney Plus, and also Star Wars Day. Right. So before we go into any of that, just some quick housekeeping. If you haven't already done so, make sure you do hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest Disney Plus news. If you haven't already done so as well, you can subscribe on audio platforms, so you can go through to like Spotify, iTunes, etc. And then also big hello and thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon and YouTube channel memberships, which includes Sarah at the platinum level, and we've also got Andrew, Jacob, Caleb, Resmars, Andrew, Cody, Darren, The Juice, Lester, Lauren, and James. And then over on YouTube, we have Melissa, My VCR Still Works, Bina, Bad Dog Gaming, Joshua, Ben, Adam, Dawn, Martin, Jeremy, and Sarah. Thank you very much for all of your support. If you want to become a member, you can do something as little as $2 a month. You help support the podcast and keeping it going. You also help towards the YouTube and all of the licensing and all the bits and pieces that we have to do. And every Sunday we do a live Q&A on YouTube. So if you remember there, you can join in the live chat, and also you get to contribute to questions. You also get early access to content. So this past week, they've had access to Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the original movie, rather than the animated series, a review. And you also get your name at the end of the credits. Right. Let's get into it. So let's talk first off. Let's talk the fun one. Let's do Star Wars Day. So Star Wars Day is May the 4th. And Disney have done a Star Wars takeover on Disney Plus, where they put new artwork onto all the different movies available. You got a big banner when you come in, and that'll be running through till the 9th of May. And I think like every day, just changing up the artwork. Nice little thing. I think they did this again last year, getting different artists in and doing it. Hopefully as well, they make the art available elsewhere. I think it's a nice little touch. I mean, there's always that kind of weird thing like, you could, is that all? Is like, could do a little, could there not be a, but obviously we are getting Star Wars: The Bad Batch on Star Wars Day. We're getting a 70-minute episode. And then on Friday we're getting a new episode, and then there are going to be new episodes dropping after that one. I think it would have been a bit nicer had we had all that vintage collection dropping on that same day. That would have been a nice, I think that would have been better. It would have made a bit more of an impact, but I understand they don't want to take it away from Bad Batch. But yeah, so that one there is looking pretty good. Did you see all this artwork that they did for Star Wars Day?
Well, I haven't seen the artwork. I don't think they've actually released most of it, but I did see that it was happening, which I think is cool. It's a nice touch. In regards to the vintage stuff, and we're talking about like the old cartoons, Ewoks, droids, etc., the movies, Ewok movies. It would have been nice for them to put them out on the 4th, but I think we talked about this. They kind of would have gotten overshadowed by other things happening in Bad Batch, most notably. I'm not really sure what else they could do with Disney Plus for that. I'm sure that they'll put up like some playlists, something like that. They might have a new Clone Wars playlist, which will cover important episodes for maybe Echo, one of the clone troopers, and then like the Bad Batch episodes from the last season. Otherwise, Star Wars Day is mostly about the merchandise, and we are not a merchandise podcast.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Well, this podcast wasn't. The previous one was.
Yeah.
But that's where all the fun is happening, is over there.
Yeah, there's lots of bits and pieces going on. There's some like Star Wars games are all on sale. But importantly as well, the Bad Batch are coming to the Galaxy of Heroes video game.
Oh, cool.
There's also like the Mandalorian is being added to the Zum Zum game. And there's also a VR Star Wars table game out, and it's got one of the tables is actually a new Mandalorian one. So you can, so
that's the pinball table, right?
Pinball one. Yeah, and also I think because I've been tempted to pick up that Vader Immortal one, but I haven't got the one things. But
I think is the Vader Immortal one, and that's only on Oculus, right?
No, I think.
Did they finally release it?
Yeah, I think so. But
that's right.
So
it is on PlayStation.
Yeah. And there's a whole host of other games all on set. So there's a lot of merchandise, new Lego sets. Keep an eye out. I'm sure there's going to be some fun stuff coming out with like the Mandalorian, and I kind of feel like Bad Batch would have been. It's like it feels a bit light of going. Like there's no merchandise for the Bad Batch like ready to. I know there's a Lego set that's kind of out there on the interwebs at the minute that hasn't been officially revealed. So expect some other stuff to be revealed maybe next week. So yes, the Star Wars Day is happening. Let's now talk about some kind of interesting news down in Latin America. Back at December's Investors Day event, they announced that they would be launching a separate streaming service in Latin America called Star Plus, which would contain all the information from Star and that we get over here in like the UK and Australia and Canada, and which is like 20th Century Studios, FX, ABC, merging it all into one app. But it has live sports, it has advertisements within the sports, but it looks like there's a problem because while they changed all the TV channels over in Latin America from Fox to Star, Lionsgate's StarzPlay has put in a trademark dispute in Mexico, Brazil, and also Argentina against them using Star as a branding name because they say it's too close to their own branding and will confuse customers. Now, this kind of could have an impact on Star. There's been no news about Star Plus in Latin America for a while, and it's kind of quite weird because in Latin America they have been getting some slightly more mature content than the US has been getting, and they got like Glee and I think like Off the Boat was added, so they've been getting, but it's not getting everything. And then also what's been funny was last week when they released the 22 versus Earth trailer, they put up the wrong end card and it had this plus Star on it like we do like here in the UK. Of course, that then got everyone excited that maybe they've dumped the idea. They then pulled the trailer and it was like, no, it's a mistake. But even more weirdly, they put out a weird tweet saying, oh, we've got something really excited to tell you, and never did anything after that. So I don't know what's going on down there, but this trademark could have an impact. Or it could just be, in my view, maybe StarzPlay kind of going, give us some money. You gave us some money last time you launched Disney Plus. So I can see StarzPlay's point of view that, is very close to it, but also it's one of the lines of, I just don't really understand why Disney went with a Star Plus, why they didn't do ESPN Plus for the sports and do what they did elsewhere. I don't necessarily agree with what they've done down in Latin America.
No. And it really does feel like we don't know everything about what's going on. And obviously, we're probably never going to. No. There's probably a lot of behind doors meetings between both companies. Yeah. There's not really much we can do until we find out what the resolution is.
This is the thing is, essentially Star Plus is supposed to launch next month in June. So, you would imagine there would be a little bit more news and stuff coming up. But yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that there is some legal issues going on right now. I'm not surprised by StarzPlay kind of jumping into it. I think internationally is a little bit harder because I think Star, like on us over here in the UK, was less of an issue because it wasn't its own standalone kind of thing. But nevertheless, yeah, so it's a bit of a shame. And there's a kind of weird thing of ever since Star launched back in February, I kind of do feel like, especially like with the US and Latin America, of like how much Star has changed the Disney Plus experience. I know for me personally, I am watching so much more Disney Plus since they added Star. There's so much more content on there. There's so much more variety for me. It's now going. It is that number one place where I do go and watch stuff because I'm catching up on TV shows that I've not seen before that I've been wanting to, and put things on in the background, and that makes a massive difference to me of like what we've been watching and stuff. So nice to see. Hopefully we'll get some news in the next couple of weeks. Moving on from there, another big story that broke this week was apparently some cast members in Pixar are not happy with the current situation of what's going on with their movies because obviously Luca's been shifted over to Disney Plus. It'll be coming on June the 8th, so June the 18th. But they're kind of feeling like, well, why didn't we get the Premier Access treatment? And you got to think from their point of view, they lost Onward because that one got released like the week before the pandemic hit. And then everything shut down, and then Disney basically shifted the movie straight over to Disney Plus in the US. Then they had Soul got shifted back 3 times to Christmas Day, Disney Plus. Massive success, huge numbers on Disney Plus. Biggest movie for a couple of weeks in January. It's won Oscars, it's won loads of awards. So it was a mammoth success on Disney Plus. And then Luca's been shifted over as well. And their kind of view of, I'll just read out a few of the quotes. This was from the Insider. Luca doesn't even have a premium price next to it. Doesn't make it lesser. It's hard to grasp. Another one said, we just don't want a title just on Disney Plus. These movies are crafted for the big screen. We want you to watch these phones with no distractions, no looking at your phones. And another person said, everyone is worried about keeping their jobs if our films aren't seen by Disney as being financially successful. And then another animator added, there will not be a change in how we make the films. That's what's important. The piece of art, that's what matters. So some of the last one was a bit more about, it doesn't really matter where it goes. It's what you make. And I kind of take the way that they put it, I can completely understand. If you spent years working on a movie that you thought was going to go in the cinema and it goes to Disney Plus, and you maybe feel like that's the lesser model. That's one, it would have been better on the big screen. It would have been, that's where movies should be, that kind of old way of like looking at movies. And then there's the other idea of going, maybe Disney have decided that Pixar movies, maybe, this one wasn't Luca and Soul, they're new IP, so therefore they don't do as well at the box office. But then you look at the other way and go, well, if they go, no, we need a boost for Disney Plus. These are massive boosts for that. We then get all the merchandise sales, we get more people into it quicker. And that might be a way that they're looking at it. The only thing that gets me of why Luca got shifted to Disney Plus while Cruella, Black Widow, and Raya all got Premier Access, I kind of feel like, well, shouldn't have Luca done that as well? That was my only, because that's the only one that's been shifted. So I can see why they're upset, but at the same time, I think they need to get past the idea that maybe it's almost that kind of thing like, well, going straight to Disney Plus is a bit like going straight to video, and it's not as premium, and they're worried. So I don't think they should be worried. I mean, Soul showed them that this was a massive success for Disney.
Yeah, I think anybody who thinks that Disney is going to look at the numbers and say, "Oh, Pixar is not pulling their weight," doesn't really understand the situation. And if Disney ever does take that perspective, that is a good indication that it's probably time to jump ship, because that means they don't understand their own brands. First point, I would absolutely have considered Luca a better choice for premium access than Cruella. Like, I'm not even remotely considering buying Cruella. I would probably have thought deeply about Luca one way or another. But that's a personal thing, one way or another.
I get that. I'm much more excited about Luca than I am Cruella. It's kind of that feeling of Luca's brand new and fresh.
Yeah. So I think there's really two ways to look at it. I mean, with a lot of variations on it. But one way is what this one employee is looking at it, where it devalues the brand, because they're saying, "Oh, we don't trust you with the premium access. We don't." And that's one way of looking at it. Yeah. There's the other way of looking at it, and this is the way I personally look at it, is that Disney actually has so much respect for the Pixar brand that this is the carrot that they use to pull people in on Disney Plus. It's like, look, it's not just the shovelware. It's not just the stuff we're tossing out there. This is actual good content that you can get right now at the base price. This is their incentive to bring people in. You've got top quality Pixar movies right here, right now, no extra cost. But I can see both sides on that. And I can definitely see why the animators would feel like, well, it's not enough for people to acknowledge that Luca and Soul are these great movies. It's also, you need to have that feeling that it's good, that there has to be a huge endorphin rush for, like, we broke $1 billion at the box office. If I worked on a project and it broke $1 billion, I would definitely be like, yeah, this is a pretty good feeling.
Well, I think that is the thing of, like, maybe they looked at how Raya did and were like, look, the animated stuff just doesn't, it sold it better for them than Raya. That could be the way that they looked at it and go, well, actually, we got a better return on what we wanted from Soul than we did from Raya on Premier Access. And that's one way I think you could look at it. And I think that's definitely, the way I would look at it and go, they maybe have got a little bit of data now.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to address one other thing. One of the tweets or whatever their comments were, the theater experience, which we've talked about in the past. And I know a lot of people in the movie industry still kind of hold the theater experience up as like the golden standard, the ultimate thing, to be in a theater and experience the movie and being enraptured by the movie. I don't think we're there anymore. Is the
No.
theater experience better than the home experience? I think 99% of the time it is. Absolutely. But is it so much better that it should be held up on this pedestal? No, probably not.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know if
and
this person's been to the cinema lately of
I,
like distractions of people on their phones, people eating, people chatting, and then people are just like, of like just losing that concept of like turn everything off, shut off the real world, just escape. And the thing is, there is that thing of you consider, if there's kids running around inside the theater, it that is distracting, and you kind of, and I'll be honest, especially I think with the Disney and the Pixar movies, for me, I can sit there at home and watch it, and I've got you close the blinds, you put them, and I got a big enough TV, you got the sound bar, and I can just sit there and watch it. I will, put the phone on the charger and just put it in the corner and just like disconnect for a couple of. But not everyone does that, and I think there's that idea of you're just watching it at home, but going to the cinema, it's not a completely distraction free. So that can really depend on your situation.
I've definitely been to the theater, and like a person 2 or 3 rows in front of you will just be scrolling through their Instagram or whatever through the entire movie. Like, this is not distraction free. I've gotten a second screen over here I didn't actually want. Like you said, kids, people munching on food, and you yourself munching on food is always fun
Well,
too.
no, the trick is, of course, is that you take that big slurp of drink just when there's an explosion. That's or you sit there with a wrapper and you go, and there's a loud noise.
Well, but what do you do if you're watching like Pride and Prejudice or something like that? I don't remember there being a loud car chase in that movie.
Just don't go. That's the...
Well, I mean but that's the other point. We're not saying don't go to see classics, but that is the other point. In terms of like the theater experience, the period dramas, the slice of life movies, the quieter, more maybe melancholy kind of movies, you absolutely do not get a better experience on theater, which not saying you're getting a bad experience, but your home experience versus your movie experience is going to be pretty much almost the same, minus whatever's around you. It's the big flashy movies that really benefit. So
let's take last night I watched Nomadland, which arrived on Disney Plus yesterday. And so this movie couldn't be released in cinemas over here because the cinemas aren't open for a few more weeks. So last night that dropped onto, so I put it on. Now I'm going to be honest, I was kind of not completely paying attention to it that in 100% like I probably would have been had I gone to cinema, but I never would have gone to the cinema to watch it. And that's straight up. I wouldn't have, I was like, the trailer was like, no, but it was on Disney Plus. So it's like, okay, I'll have a look at it and watch it. Now, the question is, I wouldn't have gone and seen it at the cinema, but it was something I checked out at home, because it was like launch day and all the rest of it. And I'm watching it and got distracted a few times because like, okay, it's a much slower pace. Say a slower pace. I mean, it doesn't get kind of out of first gear in terms of what it's, because it is intentionally slow. But that is again the kind of movie where I was like, did I hurt, did that hurt Searchlight movies for having it? But the budgets are so low on those kind of movies, it makes less of an impact. It doesn't have a huge thing, but I can, that's the kind of thing of like, that was an experience. I had a different experience and I would have gone to the theater, but I just feel like I just never would have gone.
Yeah, and how different would it have been? It depends a bit though, because I haven't seen Nomadland, so I can't speak to that one. But something like No Country for Old Men, a movie I quite like a bit, but it's also a slower movie. There's brief bursts of action, but otherwise it's mostly people talking and being threatening to each other. However, there are mixed into it these absolutely beautiful sweeping shots of the Texas high desert, and they're gorgeous, and they would look fantastic on the big screen, and they look fantastic on a modern 4K HDR. Even though it's not like a super flashy movie, I think it does look better in the theater for those sweeping shots.
Well, Nomadland had some amazing like sunsets, and it did look great because watching obviously, Disney Plus 4K big 65-inch TV looked great. so much stuff. I think apparently there's like a load of reports of like Kevin Feige kind of saying, "How did you do this? Do all these amazing sunsets?" And they're like, "We were just there to film them." You know, he got so used to CGI, he kind of lost the track of like what was, you know, how beautiful they could be out in like the Badlands and out in the you know the northern states.
I think it was George Lucas talking to Steven Soderbergh, the guy who did Gangs of New York.
Yeah.
And maybe not Soderbergh, but like he did a whole bunch of practical sets, so it looked like old New York.
Yeah.
And George was like, you can do this all with computers, and it's like, yeah, but it doesn't look as good.
No, yeah, it is. I think it's just one of those things of like, experience. It is very different, and there are fors and against. And I think that's ultimately, like the whole thing, like with what HBO Max is doing, where cinemas are going to both. You have the choice. Same thing with Premier Access. It fits both people. It's like Black Widow. Some people are going to want to watch that in the big screen and have the full-on experience, and I think a lot of people will want to. And then there's going to have other people at home going, yeah, I'm going to sit at home. I don't have to worry about, and does it make it a lesser experience? I mean, if you're paying $30 for it, it's different, but there is that difference and there is that big difference. When you're paying $30 for it at home, does that make you paying much more attention? I think it does. I think it that has another impact as well. So I see where they're going, but I also feel like in some way I think for Pixar, it's the fact they got hit 3 times. They got 3 times in a row with just movies not doing it. They should be really proud of what they did with Soul, because that was a huge success, and I'm sure Luca is going to have a very similar line. Hopefully, the Oscars and stuff will rake up now and go, yeah, we need to kind of include films that are streaming, otherwise we're not going to have a lot left.
Well, yeah. I mean, the 2021 slate is looking pretty interesting towards the end of the year for stuff going into theaters. But yeah, I mean, 2020 changed everything in terms of that. But I'll reiterate from the beginning of this, if anyone seriously thinks that Disney is going to devalue Pixar because their movies are not generating revenue or directly generating revenue, really doesn't understand how Disney works in this case. And if Disney does start working on that and going, hey, Pixar, why was Onward such a bomb? That would be definitely maybe sell your Disney stocks.
I think the trouble is as well, it's like with, obviously like Pixar movies generally do, they can do pretty good at that. There's a lot of big heavy hitters, but there's also a lot of $300, $400, $500 million brackets, and they need that to make the money back. And it is that kind of weird thing, because it does feel like this year, we've not had that whole every movie, that whole what movie is coming to Disney Plus like we had last year, because they were just moving. We had Artemis Fowl, the one on the Ivan. We were like, Soul. We were like, what one are they going to pick? Which one are they going to delay it or move it to Disney Plus? Whereas this year it's been like, what are they putting? Are they going to do it on Disney Plus Premier Access? We kind of feel like the idea that whole process of them shifting to Disney Plus just might not be such a big thing anymore for them.
Well, yeah, now that the theaters are probably going to be opening full capacity in the foreseeable future, they're going to want that box office money. I mean, that's basic economics.
And I'll be honest, there is that feeling of, if it goes to cinemas and it does well, it does feel like it does feel like a bigger movie. I mean, when you flick through, when I used to flick through like the PlayStation or the Amazon store, and you see movie after movie that you've never heard of, you do view it and that's rubbish. There is that kind of, and it's built into us, and I can see where they're coming from, but at the same time, boosting up Disney Plus is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and similarly, you look through those catalogs and you'll see big name actors attached to stuff. Prior to 2020, if you saw a big name actor attached to a movie that you'd never heard of, you would just immediately go, there is no way this is any good at all, because they would absolutely be hyping the heck out of this. And I haven't really shaken that. So even looking at 2020, it's like, oh, that's a big name actor, but I've never heard of this movie. And then kind of like, well, maybe I never heard of this movie because like nothing's going to theaters right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of them now are doing the press junkets and kind of getting things going. Netflix kind of has a very weird view with like promotion. They don't spend a huge amount of time promoting stuff. They kind of, it's like, hey, nice new shiny toy next week.
Well, Netflix has carved out their niche, and their niche is the drop everything for 1 week and get the hype for that 1 week, and then move on to the next thing. And they get the rare Tiger King that lasts for a couple months.
We got that new movie, Army of the Dead.
That actually looks kind of entertaining.
Yeah, that is one that I do want to watch on Netflix. So that's definitely on my watch list. Right, let's now move on to some of the reviews, because we kind of got to this thing of like, this is the new normal, because we've been joking about the fact of like, we had this time last year we were like, we've got one short to talk about. We're going to talk about Lamp Life this week, and reviews kind of, we had maybe one episode. So we're in this new zone now where we've got 5 originals a week, the new episodes. We've got Star originals. We've got we've got so much content and so much to watch. So let's jump into the first one. 22 versus Earth, a new so short, about 5 minutes long. What did you think of this one?
For a 5-minute short, it was fine. Completely forgettable. Got a couple of chuckles out of it. Yeah. Inoffensive, and that was the end of it. I'll probably forget about it by the end of next week.
Yeah, it was it kind of actually showed to me of going, 22 is not strong enough for our own movie. Not without some better story than, because this was like, it kind of got going and it was over, and like, okay, that was kind of cute. It was fun. I enjoyed it, and I definitely would recommend Soul fans check it out. But it was kind of just, I did think it was quite funny with, get this gang together and they're all going to try and stop it, but they ended up loving it.
I think that's the thing of it. It was funny in the execution, but you could see where it was going immediately. Yeah. You could see all the jokes coming, including the final one. Like, oh, what's the meaning of life? Cut to black. And it's like, oh, seriously? Come on. No, what I was hoping for, and we talked about last week or maybe the week before, was I was kind of hoping we would see 22 interacting with famous historical figures like they do in the movie. I could watch that for 10 minutes of her just completely ripping on historical figures, and instead we got this weird caper drama. Yeah. But you also don't have much room to work with a 5-minute.
No, it's a nice short. Definitely see this. There's that kind of thing, like, this is the kind of thing Pixar, that's what they should be used for. That kind of, you put your junior teams on this kind of thing, let some people practice out some stuff and do more of this, short, and keep franchises alive, because that's kind of what Frozen have been able to do for years. Just keep dropping, annual shorts and just kind of keep the franchise moving along. Because I think that worked really good with Frozen. We had Frozen Fever, Olaf's Adventure, and then Once Upon a Star, just to kind of fill in the void.
I feel like there was one more in there too, but yeah, they did a good job of filling those. But those also had like actual narrative beats to them. They had not exactly consequence, because you can watch Frozen and Frozen 2 without watching anything in between and not miss any of. But it felt like there was progression, whereas this one was just, 22 is doing some weird thing. They're trying to escape. They're trying to make friends, which they could have done something with, like this whole idea of 22 just not ever having friends. But instead they went for that person discovered that they're actually going to be a really good car thief.
So now that looks pretty cool. We also got Assembled, the making of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So this one was about an hour long. Kind of watched it and kind of got to the end and went, it was like, did I learn anything new? The only thing was like, the CGI of the costume was about the only thing that I kind of went, okay, that's what you had to do. All the stuff with like, COVID, kind of what the problem, they didn't really explain what they changed. They kind of kept it very vague. We made lots of changes. Tell us what you did. What was originally gonna? It kind of would have been nice to. They kind of emphasized that they've made changes and they had to make some change, but they're like, well, this was the original plan. That would have been nice to kind of. But they obviously didn't.
I think they might have held that back in case they want to use it for a future show of some sort, not necessarily a Falcon or a Captain America and the Winter Soldier, but just in general, because they have storylines and now they can cannibalize this one. I think if this hadn't come out immediately after the show, it would have done better, because a lot of it is them kind of recapping what happened, not directly, but like the actors talking about, this is what my character does in this show. And this is why I did particularly like Zemo's section though, where you got to see how much fun he was having.
He looked like he was having a lot of fun on set, especially like trying to pimp out Sokovia.
That was
as a board of the tourism board. I thought that I did like that.
Frankly, they should have made that a trailer. That was hilarious. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
Yeah, no, I think it's the thing is with this, it kind of feels along the lines of all this stuff was being filmed, and then they're like, do we put it in as extras? Do we put it as a series? Do we? It was like, right, we're going to film this, but we don't really know how we're going to like show it off because it does like change how they do it. And I get how they're doing it. It's the kind of I'm glad that they are doing it like this. I do think the assembled system, I think it's stronger as one solid show rather than doing 10 little shorts all with different themes. I think that's better. It's better. I think it's better than doing it as extras because they get lost in the shuffle on Disney Plus. So I thought it was okay. I did sort of thing afterwards, like, shall I write a review of this? And I'm going, I wasn't really anything much to kind of just say. It's all right, but yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, I didn't feel so confused with it like I did with, I think with WandaVision, it was like, how did they do that? What did they do that was different? This was like, no, this is just your standard Marvel thing.
So I suspect, and I'm basing this on pretty much nothing, but I suspect that since Falcon and Winter Soldier was actually first on the roster, they really were just picking B-roll footage and behind the scenes footage that they just kind of arbitrarily created. Whereas WandaVision really got to benefit from them going, oh, we did the Mandalorian gallery and that worked out really well. So maybe not some of the initial stuff, but like the post-COVID, when they had to do some reshoots, they can be like, all right, let's get some proper behind the scenes. Let's get some things that will actually televise well on their own. So I think that was part of it. I also wanted to talk very, very briefly about what you mentioned before with the CGI, where they talked about fixing Sam's suit. They mentioned this a little bit in WandaVision too, where they talked about how Vision, they added a lot of stuff in that. And this is why I tend to get annoyed about people being like CGI is the most evil thing of all time and stuff. Yeah, when you do it for things like the Phantom Menace or even let's say the end of Infinity War, which is just a giant CGI fight theme video game with these little monster things and whatnot. Yeah, okay, I totally agree with you on that. But when CGI is used well, you don't even notice it.
No.
And this is where it is used well. Background features and touching up the costumes and all sorts of small things. CGI doesn't really work on the big scale. We're getting better at it. It can look good. Like I saw Godzilla versus Kong recently, and the CGI in that looks fantastic. You still never, oh yeah, there's a giant lizard rampaging through Hong Kong. No, but he still looks great. I just know he's CGI. But this and WandaVision, where they're talking about adding like prosthetic parts to his face and stuff, works perfectly. You don't even know it's there, and if they didn't mention it in the behind the scenes, you would never know.
Well, it's like the whole thing with his suit never even crossed my mind. I thought because I said, oh no, he's wearing the suit. Like, okay, cool. And like, oh, it creases. I was like, wow, oh right, okay, something so simple that because if you saw that on the screen, you'd be there going, oh, that looks a bit like homemade. But yeah, no, that was one. There's other thing like we made this massive wall of monkey heads, and we spent all this money. We made 50. We didn't even notice it in the movie. Didn't even like sometimes you guys spend a lot of time on stuff that no one really notices. But that's it's there to kind of like we did it and like, but it's all blurry. You can't even see what it is.
But that's the ultimate catch-22 of these background artists and the CGI artists. If you don't notice it, then it worked and no big deal. Even if it's something that just doesn't even show up in the final release, like it's blurred out or the camera never pans over it, no problem. But if it's not there, oh yeah, you notice it's not there.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, there was part of the episode I liked, showing how they made was it Maribor? What's that? Madripoor, like turning like this old street with a track running through it and kind of taking inspiration from a clip I actually remember seeing that clip of people stepping out their doorway. So I instantly like, oh yeah, I know that, I've seen that clip myself of this street in Asia where there's literally the train track runs right through it. So I thought that was pretty good. So yeah, I thought it was okay. I'm glad it's there. The one I'm really looking forward to from this series will be the What If one. That's the one I'm going to be much more interested in seeing how this all works. Yeah.
I would agree with that, especially since What If is going to be animated. It'll be very different kind of behind the scenes, because you're not going to have too many shots of, I don't know, Tom Hiddleston flying around in a rig or something like that. It's going to be people drawing.
Yeah, so that's the definite one. So I think the next one will probably be will be Loki. No, it'll be probably Black Widow might be the next one, because Loki kind of finishes after Black Widow. So it might be a while.
That's kind of what I'm thinking it'll be.
Yeah. So that one was pretty cool. We also got a new episode of The Mighty Ducks. So this one was the kind of the nostalgia episode where we brought the original team back. They kind of did a gala where Bombay wasn't invited to. And then there was a whole other subplot with Evan kind of being tempted with the idea of rejoining the Ducks. And it was kind of one of those with, I think with that story of like, you know, he's hiding it from them and he kind of wants to go back. And the mum kind of goes, no, it's your choice, which I thought was good. That was the first moment I go, oh, she's actually letting him make a choice here rather than, you know, she kind of charging in with all things kind of. And I kind of thought it was like at the end of like, because you said last week, like, right, we need the one thing that's going to pull them apart so they can all come back together. So that was it. And I kind of sitting there with Evan kind of going, no, he did make the right choice. He made the wrong choice in not telling them. But he's standing there in the ice going, but I picked you guys. You know, it's like, you know, they're all just, I mean, he's going to have to do some making up. I was a little bit on the lines of, it would have been a bit more fun had he joined and then got benched and then quit. Or so it could have been a lot more. He's like, well, no, he did. He made the right choice for the guy. He did pick them. But yeah, we'll see where that goes next week.
Yeah, I was very concerned when it ended last week with, oh yeah, the coach of the Ducks wants to talk to you, and you're like, oh no, they're going this route. But he does make the right choice. He makes some mistakes along the way. It wasn't just that his mom let him make the choice. She was just like, no, this is your choice, and you have to make a choice.
Yeah,
do it. I'm not going to make it for you. And even Bombay was like, well, I know what I would pick, but you got to pick. And yeah, and I think that was very important. It's good character growth for him. It's good character growth for his mom.
What got me was the bubba. Oh yeah, I've got to go and do sort out all these bags and go to this event. Like the kid's not even been back on the team a day, and they were already like just dropping. They're like I think most parents probably would have been like, what? Oh,
it looked like she was gonna say no for just a moment there when she was in the office with the other woman, and then she buckles and it's just like, all right, fine, I'll do it. Yeah. But I think she was also mostly surprised by like, wait, what do you mean he practiced with the Ducks? Yeah. I didn't know. Yeah. If anyone should have felt betrayed, it'd be her, especially if she put all the work into building up this team for him.
Yeah, mum, your team sucks. I'm going with
we'll see the fallout with the team itself next week, and how
we still got 4 episodes. And the whole nostalgia thing, I'm going to be honest, as a person that only watched the first movie last year, well, I think I did. I don't remember watching as a kid, even though my mum said I did. That was lost on me. It was basically, oh look, it's Foggy from Daredevil. That was me. That was I'm there going. The other was like, right, they're really bad. This is just like, I didn't have that whole. I mean, I understood them all kind of, but even just the way they all stand was just like, oh, this is just too dramatic. The lighting all changing when they walk in. It was like, okay, I know what you're going for. It kind of feels like this maybe should have been much earlier in the season to get people excited. For me, it just fell flat because I wasn't that. The nostalgia didn't interest me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but not on a nostalgia level. I actually thought they made pretty good use of the characters, bringing them back as like a reality check for Bombay, which is another staple of the Ducks. The coach being like the big jerk or being at odds with the team, and then the team having this moment where like, all right, no, there's been a misunderstanding. We got to go fix it. But yeah, you can definitely tell who's been acting and who hasn't for the last several years. And
especially the guy that did all the flips and turns. I mean, he was amazing.
Well, I think that was actually him legitimately on the ice for a lot.
Well, I'm then watching his face going, well, that looks. It's like the edits aren't too bad on this.
They were much better than Bombay skating around in like episode 3 or whatever.
I mean, when Bombay did it, it could have been just like me rolling in on it with a wig on. It was so
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, they didn't have much of a part anyway. Their job was to remind Bombay of who he was and why he did it in the first place, and they did that just fine. Overall, I think I enjoyed this episode. It's probably one of my favorites of the series, not necessarily for the nostalgia, but because it is a more serious episode. Obviously, we're not into full drama mode. It's still a comedy, but the fact that they actually spent time on important plot points and there's actual growth for several of the characters in the series meant, for me, I was more engaged with this episode than I have with some of the previous ones.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It's that kind of thing of like, this series is something I am enjoying. I'm glad people are liking it. I think there's a lot of people. It seems to be a lot of going on our Facebook group and on social media. People discovering Mighty Ducks and Big Shot now that Falcon has kind of left a bit of a space. People go, oh, I didn't. This is people jumping in and go, oh, this is quite good. And which I think is good. It shows also the problem of dropping multiple shows when one grabs all the attention and the other ones don't. So let's move now about Big Shot. I watched this episode probably about a month ago. So I'm now at that point of everyone that's kind of caught up with the press. So I'm going to be completely caught up. And I am really looking forward to watching a new episode next week because it's kind of like this one is like everyone's like been like watching going yeah, I know, but I want to watch something. I want to watch it now. I want to watch. So I'm looking forward to next week where I can kind of catch up and watch some new episodes with everybody else. But I really enjoyed Big Shot because I watched all 3 first episodes back to back. So it's that kind of feeling of I think episode 3 was much more about them coming together. The kind of the end of the episode, it almost felt like if that was a movie, that kind of could have been quite a good like arc in itself. Of he gets the house, he gets in, they move in happily ever after. That could actually been the end of a movie there.
It could have been, but I actually consider this one kind of weaker than the other episodes. So I did not have the benefit of watching all 3 of them together, so they don't blend together for me. And there were parts that I really liked about it. I liked how his daughter kind of integrated into the group. He tried to force it at first, but then they're like, no, actually she earned her way into the group, and her butting heads with the pompous English teacher was great. But the degree to which they had John Stamos being just completely oblivious to how to take care of his daughter was a little bit just like, all right, can we move past this story? This has been done to death 1,000 times. I don't really need to see this one again.
And there's also that kind of thing as well. And then I kind of go, right, okay. So this guy teaches basketball to kids after school. What does he do all day? Right, he must be clear. He's clear from 6, after they finish practice at like 8, 7 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He's got all day. They don't mention he's teaching any other kids. The whole of the other school doesn't seem to be. And then he wants to spend all evening doing. It's like, well, you've got 7, 8 hours in the day, mate. You got to. It's like I'm there going, yeah, this is a little part of my own little plot point. Going, him doing all these extra evening hours. He doesn't do anything during the day. He's got how long does he? Well, I don't know. That's my only issue. Going, he's got 6, 7 hours a day to do prep for each practice.
I do think they made it at least a little bit clear that he was making stuff for himself to do because he did not want to deal with settling his daughter in and going house hunting and so I'm willing to give them that, but at the same time I'm like, you overplayed it. He obviously cares about his daughter, but the degree to which he doesn't know how to handle her is just weird, honestly. And I get he and his wife were separated for a while, and so he hasn't had to take care of her properly. But I would hope.
But then this is going to be the thing, isn't it? Of she's going to teach him how to handle the teenage girls. The teenage girls are going to teach him how to handle his daughter. You can kind of see, this like big like loop of where this is all going.
But it's weird because at least some of the girls on the team he already gets along fine with. Like that one girl has a crush / daddy issue with him going on, and then there's and there's other ones who at least, even if they're not like, oh, he's the greatest coach in the world, they can be at least, well, I understand why he is this giant jerk and why he's pushing us so hard. I don't like it, but I understand it and respect him as a coach. Uh, so it's weird that he's having such a hard time connecting with his daughter. Now, obviously, they kind of wrap it up a bit at the end of the episode, but I'm sure that that's not the end of this plot. As
I mean, the whole thing as well with him like losing his father, of why he kind of connected with Destiny, with her like not having a dad, and him kind of, you know, putting down the paperwork and going and playing basketball with her, and kind of just spending, you know, giving, and obviously then his daughter gets a bit like jealous of that, but then kind of sees what happened, why he did it. I just think I think there's that kind of feeling of this series showing a little bit more of a mature side. It's a little bit more of, this is a proper TV series. It is, there is adult issues. You know, we're getting a lot more stuff coming into it. There's going to be a whole host of other stories by the looks of it, because a new coach was revealed last night. So there's going to be as a rival kind of thing. So there's things are going to be moving along, but I much prefer Big Shot over Mighty Ducks because it's a little bit more mature. You know, the kids are dealing with slightly more issues than the Mighty Ducks kids. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to kind of jumping in with some new episodes later next week.
Yeah,
I kind of definitely feel like if I was to pick one out of Mighty Ducks or Big Shot, I would go with Big Shot. And this again is the problem of running these two shows simultaneously. They're way too close, way too similar. There are differences, but, and then we're going to have High School Musical next week, or not next week, the week after. I do feel like that's my one issue. We shouldn't, it's this natural comparison between the two.
Yeah. And I'm on the same page with you, which surprised me because as a hockey player, I would have expected to like the Ducks more. But Big Shot is the one that I look forward to more each week at the moment. And I think it's the better show, mostly for that maturity angle. But I will also point out, while it does have that maturity angle going, we've also got this one kid running around doing that journalistic thing where they're interviewing people. And like, could this girl possibly be showing her hand more in like how she is slanting this piece? She's like, oh, can you say that again, but without me talking, so it can be as incriminating as possible? I mean, she didn't say that last part, but she might as well have. I'm just like, this, it feels like a weird out of place plot amongst the next. Now, granted, we don't know where they're going with it. It sounds like the daughter has not done the interview yet. So we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, it's like obviously running some kind of hit piece on the coach. And it's like, how does nobody recognize that?
I always find it funny as well, like with the Americans, like this whole newspaper thing and blog that American newspaper high schools do, because that's just not a thing over here in the UK. We're just something that never happened. It's just, you know, it's not part of. So always it's just like a high school trope that we see in TV series. Going, they always have this like high school. Did you have one at school?
Technically, we had one. I think it published. Well, this was before blogs too, but I think in my junior year it published like once in the entire year. So, I mean, it's kind of a weird trope for me too. Like, you see it in like Smallville, you're like, okay, that makes sense because Kent's going to eventually become, you know, part of the Daily Planet or whatever. But
like Riverdale and all the rest of it, like,
it's like, why? They have to generate the drama somehow, and it's a very useful narrative storytelling tool. But it's a weird trope even over here.
So that's my own issue, but that's just in general. Right, okay, so we got some Star originals as well to talk about. We got Solar Opposites. So this new episode involved the gang getting lost in the woods and building a massive city out of a special thing that blew up, turned it into a wooden city with wooden people. They all went separate ways. One of them became like a massive money spinner, like Wolf on Wall Street. One of them became a prostitute. One of them become a gangster, and another one became a fashion model, fashion designer. And then there's a whole other thing of a serial killer living inside of the wall. It is absolutely bonkers, this show. Every time I try to explain, you know, what happens in these shows, it just kind of you're like, what is going on? It's bonkers. I love it. Such a cool little animated series. See why it's continuing to get better and better views on the Nelson chart each week. You know, there's a lot of people checking out Solar Opposites. So if you haven't done so, and you like a little bit, you know, if you like Family Guy, South Park, or anything like that, give Solar Opposites a go. It is one of my favorite originals I watch every week is definitely Solar Opposites.
If I had Hulu, I would check it out.
Yeah.
Since it's not integrated into Disney Plus right now, I can't. When they integrate Hulu into Disney Plus, hopefully I'll remember to check it out at that point.
Yeah. Also got a new episode of Grownish. So we got the first episode of season 3. Now, for some reason, like Australia got these back in February. Canada got them in March, but we're way behind. So we've just got but they literally only dropped season 1 like 2 weeks ago. Season 1 and 2 like 2 weeks ago. So I've binged through the whole lot. And so I watched episode 3. And I probably binged through 2 seasons of Blackish as well this week. So I've been this has been the kind of thing of like, I'm getting in the zone for this. So now it's like having new episodes every week for the next 4 months. So this episode, the third episode, was a little bit like, oh, okay, I wasn't so keen on that one. I was a bit out there, but again, just nice having choice. This is kind of a group of I wouldn't even say teenagers, but young adults in university going through life, and all the issues that come with it. Boys, jobs, pregnancies, drugs, all the kind of bits and pieces. So I'm enjoying that series. Again, so we're getting new episodes of that every week. There was also new Dollface, new Filthy Rich over here in the UK. I've kind of Next is right at the very bottom of our watch list. So, I'll get there eventually, but it's that kind of thing. Once you know a show is cancelled, it just goes so to the bottom of your watch list to what to watch. And well, I'll get to it eventually. It doesn't matter because it's never going anywhere. So we are kind of doing that one. As I said, I also watched Nomadland, which debuted here in the UK yesterday and in Australia and New Zealand and Ireland. Really weird movie, very strange, very kind of, there were some poetic moments of like going, okay, I see what they're going for this. This woman, she's working at Amazon, and then the kind of the job at Christmas goes, and then the job goes, and then they're kind of just wandering around like the north of America in the cold, all the problems that entail, like with your car and making connections and swapping bits of it. It's a very different kind of movie. Something I probably wouldn't have gone if this was made, but if this was on Netflix or Sky, I just wouldn't have even bothered. Doesn't help. This is just that kind of feeling of going, whenever something wins an Oscar, I don't know what it is, but Oscar movies just do not resonate with me. I like things like Transformers and King Kong, where things blow stuff up. I'll be honest, I like blockbusters. So I always watch these Oscar movies going, oh, this is supposed to be the best movie of all time. And I'm watching it, well, that was something. It's like, this is a serious movie. It tells a lot of interesting stories. It was better than I was expecting it to be. It's very slow. It's very plodding. It's got some beautiful scenery. I'm much more excited to see what she does with Eternals, and there's a lot of pressure on her now to it's a very different kind of movie to this. But yeah, it was definitely, I could empathize a little bit with this woman. I think having done a lot of I spent a couple of months traveling around America in a van. So there was aspects to this life that I kind of grasped, that thing of feeling on the road, being camping and it's freezing cold in the middle of Dakota and all, I have experienced that a little bit. So I could definitely feel like that helped me connect with her a little bit more. But yeah, definitely a different kind of movie.
So I haven't seen it. I think it's on Hulu over here again. I have to admit, I didn't even know the Oscars had happened until you were talking about it just now. I don't give any credibility to the Oscars anymore. The thing to understand about them is it's the industry awards for the industry. So it's a lot of what the industry finds interesting rather than what people find interesting. Now, granted, I still don't give much credibility to the People's Choice Awards or whatever else.
I always feel like the MTV Awards usually are the ones where they're all the ones that are voted by the fans, and that's when you're going to see the big blockbusters move. And it's that kind of weird thing with the Oscars. You can tell, the viewing figures for this year were, every year it's getting less and less, and they're going, what's going on? I'm going, well, maybe pick some movies that people have seen that might help. It's just give some attention to movies that people love rather than random movies that people aren't interested in. So you're picking movies that people, your general audience isn't interested in. In the old days where you used to be able to say, pat something on the head and kind of go, this is great. And it used to give, they always used to talk about these movies getting a boost after the Oscars. People have they've, I don't know. It just feels like the Oscars have lost so much prestige because they've got way too caught up in giving other movies, which obviously need that kind of attention, but they don't highlight anything mainstream, which then seems to obviously. So the animated movie is the only one that ever seems to be mainstream.
Well, you will see the mainstream movies pick up in some of the secondary categories, like special effects, makeup, costuming, editing. But even editing kind of lost it. One was it Bohemian Rhapsody, which was a really good movie. Don't get me wrong on that, but the editing in it is atrocious. It's absolutely horrible. I'm talking visual editing here. And the fact that it won the Oscar, I was just like, what are you even talking about? Did we watch the same movie? And I love the movie. Don't get me wrong, but I can love a movie and acknowledge that it has flaws, and its flaws were definite in the editing. But yeah, Oscars are the industry for the industry, and the industry lives in a completely different sphere than we do. And this actually goes back to what I was talking about earlier when they still have this view of the theater as the golden standard, and they have their own standards, and they want to see these melancholy, emotional movies. And to be honest, it was the year The Artist won Oscars that I stopped caring, because I was like, okay, it's not a bad movie, but this is literally a movie just patting the entire industry on the back. Look at how great the silent movies were. Look at how great the visual storytelling is. It's it's an okay movie, but you guys only voted for it because it says Hollywood is the greatest thing of all time.
It's that kind of weird thing. I think watching Nomadland, I can see where they were going with the whole idea of being on your own, loneliness, and I think it did portray that very well. The loneliness of it, being desperate, but she didn't say a lot of words. There wasn't, it was all said through her face and just kind of you guessing what she's feeling. But at the same time, if you weren't in that zone, you might not necessarily pick up what she was doing, because and I feel like this is kind of that one situation I see why it got so much attention, but at the same time, I'm going, this is just a movie that the mass majority of people are going to turn off. They're going to put it on Disney Plus and they're going this is boring. It's just a woman in a van, and 20 minutes, half an hour, and going, nothing has happened. And that's the whole point. Very little. A highlight is a van breaking down, kind of thing. It's very, very slow, and it is. I did enjoy it. I'll never watch it again. It's not a movie that I'd ever watch again. But like I said, had it been on Netflix, I wouldn't have even checked it out. It's only because it's going, well, okay, Disney won an Oscar for this. It's on Disney Plus. It didn't go to cinemas. I probably should at least. I want to talk about it here. Whether or not does it deserve a review? It's going, I'm not going to write a review because it's been out for a few months anyway. But in the US, and it's okay, I see where they're going with it. It's not my kind of movie. But it's that kind of weird thing. You're going, wow, they really need to kind of. It's okay, so something like Jungle Cruise and Black Widow might not necessarily be the greatest movie of all time when they come out, but they've lost that kind of. I think that feeling of, everyone's doing all these side project movies that all the actors love to do, but they're not the ones that actually bring in any money, and what people go and see.
Well, I mean, that's
mix. I mean, the way that the viewing figures and the Oscars have got to be looking at this going, why aren't people, and then blaming blaming us, blaming streaming services. It's but you're not picking anything that people know. People want to see that fight between the big movies that they've seen that they love. You put Nomadland up against, I don't know, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say, let's just say, let's pick one, say Mulan, or King Kong, the King Kong movie. Let's put those. So you put Nomadland up against them, they're so different. And it's that kind of thing, that people would know the other ones much more, and it would then make something that is a bit different try and stand out, because it's got to. I don't know. It just feels to me like maybe they need some different kind of I mean, they've been talking about it for a while of making a main. I just don't know. It's very strange of how they do it.
So I'll take a kind of reverse on a little bit devil's advocate. a lot of those movies, the really popular stuff, Black Widow, Godzilla versus Kong, even Infinity War, Endgame, stuff like that. Even in like an ideal situation where it wasn't just artists patting themselves on the back, these would not be movies that would deserve to win Best Picture. Period. What makes them popular is they are completely predictable. They're just done really, really well. I wouldn't necessarily say that about Godzilla vs. Kong, but in general, movies like this, you know what you're going to get when you go into them. You'll hit some emotional beats. You'll hit some really cool special effects. They'll be well put together, but at the end of the day, they're not going to be like super amazing movies. But they do need to find a middle ground between them. They need to find movies that will engage people, but still have artistic merit to them beyond just being super flashy, super popular beat 'em ups. And you go to extremes. You go to an extreme like Nomadland, which I can't talk about it since since I haven't seen it, but like this kind of quiet, melancholy, introspective movie isn't really going to appeal to audiences, but it will appeal to a lot of critics, and it will appeal to a lot of people who live in movies, like who are in the industry, because it is so different. It's the reviewer conundrum. You know, we review a lot of stuff, and it definitely happens to us every once in a while. We're just like, this might not even be a good thing, but it's just so different from everything else that it stands out. We don't really get that too much on Disney Plus, to be honest. Well, but
but then I can say like the addition of Star has kind of refreshed my palette somewhat, because, you know, like I said, of like something like Solar Opposites comes in and feels so different to everything else I've been watching to do reviews for, that I have a much bigger love for it, because it's like it makes me laugh, it makes me react in a way that it pushes buttons that the Mighty Ducks doesn't. And so I can see, you know, and I do get that whole kind of feeling of like, you see, but I mean, I've had this issue with like critics for the last, since I was back at college, of, it was one of the, I'll be honest, I remember signing up for my media studies A level, and I went to the classes, and they were all sat in this big room. There's like 20 of us, and the teacher then goes like, okay, what's your favorite movies? And we're going around, and everyone is picking movies that are like, you know, art house, like real, like, well, it was like, and I'm going, okay, like, my favorite movie right now is like Bad Boys. Like, kind of like, and I'm like, and they were pulling out all the movies, and I did like a couple of classes, and I dropped the course, because it was on the lines of going, this is just not the kind of like what I wanted to learn about. I wanted to know, you know, more about, you know, and it was like, this isn't what I'm interested in. It was just, and I remember dropping it and going to my teacher going, you guys are just ripping apart everything that I like. But it was that almost that feeling of like 19 people picking apart everything that I liked, and like and they're like, well, I don't even like, and I just remember just going, no, this isn't for me. And I think that's just stuck with me ever since, of just that feeling of going, you know, like mainstream stuff just doesn't get that same attention. It gets more money and it gets a lot more fan attention, but like critically, it's just not up there.
Yeah, but it's completely fair in both directions on that one. It is perfectly fine for critics to go, you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a middle road action movie. It doesn't offer anything particularly special except for super special effects. Now, I really enjoyed the movie. I think it's a lot of fun, but I can also totally understand why critics would be, well, we've seen all this. There's nothing that blows your brain on this. It doesn't shake up the genre at all. It's not even necessarily a particularly good example of the genre. It does what it does fairly well, but it's not going to excel in any way. Even within the MCU, most people probably even forget it's a movie unless you're a really big fan. But by the same token, when they're over there praising these art house films, it's like, you're not in touch with your audience unless you're writing for an art house magazine. That's a different story.
It's kind of that thing I feel like with just as a whole of, you know, like the way people cling on to like Rotten Tomato and critics, and, you know, and the critics say something's amazing, and then the mainstream go to it and hate it, and then blame the critics for them going and seeing it because they all raved about it. Or it goes the other way around, of something's a massive success and the critics all completely just like dogged on it because they didn't like it. And it is one of those reasons. I mean, it kind of feels a bit weird, and like, you know, I write reviews and do video reviews, but I don't consider myself in that kind of category of being a critic of, like, you know, I tell how I feel. I'm not kind of really worried about, if you agree with me or don't. That's my opinion on it, and that's how I want to tell you about it. And hopefully if you and my idea is, and this is the thing with like reviews, and you find it a lot, like I think much more in the video game territory than you do in the movie territory. I find you find with video game reviewers, the biggest mainstream movies or video games, they can completely get in on, and they talk about all the benefits and all. They can play art, and you can kind of connect with them as a person, and they like this type of game, but you don't. And whereas with movies, it kind of, you definitely find that I find like with the YouTube community, I'm much more unlikely to agree, like with Angry Joe or Grace Randolph than I would be with like a Variety or a New York Times critic. It's just like, it's very, for me, I feel like I've gone into that line and going, I'm much more in line of like looking at what other people are saying, but I don't tend to go off it too much. But that's, to me, my own little issue, like with things like Nomadland.
I would point out that with video games, though, the time investment in them is so much larger that a lot of these reviewers do have to be specialized, and you will find reviewers who match up with yours pretty easily, because they'll probably be like, well, I'm only going to review racing games, or I'll do racing games and fighting games or something like that. So when you get an Angry Joe or Zero Punctuation or something like that, that what you're getting. Whereas movie reviewers will typically, in normal circumstances, watch 3 to 5 movies a week and then have to crank something out. And now it's only 2 hours per movie. But that means they're not specialized. It means they're watching everything. And the things that stand out are the things that are different. Nomadland being one of them.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like with like Disney Plus, of watching, I'm lucky enough that I do get to watch stuff in advance for some things. Yeah, and there is that kind of thing of like, okay, right, the review's due today, so I'll get that up and you do kind of, that we have done it where we're watching stuff and going, right, this is really just like, it's just average. You just feel like this is just bland. It is average. And I say that, I don't pull any punches if I think it's, a 3 is pretty much just average. It's just, as it is. And then something does come along and you're going, that's, this is better than I was expecting, something different. Like we said earlier, Big Shot is surprising. It's because it's a little bit different than what we were expecting, and, whereas Assembled and 22 versus Earth was very much what we were expecting. So it was kind of, in the middle. There wasn't anything great about it. And then what I say about like, I really enjoyed, I've been watching these other things, and it is nice having a lot more choice now. And I think, obviously we've been on the Falcon and WandaVision, and it's great having all this stuff, but it's nice having some choice. And it's definitely right now, I mean, I'm looking at like the lineup for like May and June for all these originals of, we're getting 4 or 5 Disney Plus original episodes a week, plus 4 or 5 Star originals, plus we're getting and it's so much more fun having some variety. It really does make such a difference in having, rather than just focusing on, one little episode or one little thing here and there. But as a whole, it's so much more fun having more variety.
It is. And I also want to be clear that we're not exempting ourselves from this either. We both have our biases, and we know that we definitely can hammer on some points that people just do not care about either. Case in point, you look at like The Right Stuff. I knew I was going to love it. I'd love to, just look behind me. It's all space. But it's not going to be for everybody. And I can understand why it didn't do so well. Or earlier, Bohemian Rhapsody, like the editing bit, most people probably don't even notice it. I am particularly sensitive to editing because I have been a video editor before, and I'm not talking about like YouTube. I've done like actual video editing. So I'm very sensitive to that. But most people, including you, probably didn't even realize what it is. And I hope I didn't ruin it for anybody by pointing it out.
Well, I'll be honest. I think as I've been doing more as I've been doing video editing, like I do video editing every single day now with the YouTube channel. Now, I'm not saying my editing is anywhere like a movie. It's not, but there's certain things of like, I've been doing, I doing little courses and stuff for trying to improve, and little techniques, and I'm doing this constantly and trying to improve. But like, that thing of like, or a scene ends and like something else happens, I am noticing cuts, and I am starting to notice, those little differences, and that's because of going, oh, so that's how they did it, or you know, and they cut it there, you know, you can see the, and but then that's why, like, when you do a one shot, you much more notice it when you are used to going, wow, they really did go for that, you know. And I think
it's
very
it's the curse of knowledge. When you are a specialist in a field, you notice things that other people won't. And they will of course be specialists in their own field, and they'll notice things you're like, oh, I would never have seen that if you hadn't pointed that out. And this is true of everything, not just movies, but you know, every tiny detail of life. Like, I can't cook. I can cook an omelet. I can cook, you know, like spaghetti, and I'll even like season it and stuff. So it's not just like tomato paste, but like an actual cook would be looking at my stuff and just going, they probably just cry themselves to sleep, honestly.
Well, I'm gonna be, I can put like fine dining in the same category as Oscars, because I watch things like MasterChef and going, that really doesn't look appealing. Like, can we not just have, you know, like some real food, a proper portion?
I'm not going to go down that path.
We're not going to go down. But nevertheless, guys, let us know what you've been watching on Disney Plus this past week. Love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, just, you know, a nice array of stuff arriving, and love to hear what all you guys are thinking. But let us know in the comments below what you think. As I say, big thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon and YouTube. Again, thank you very much for supporting us. Remember to go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Next week, we'll be talking about Star Wars: The Bad Batch. We're going to have 2 episodes that we can talk about. The feature-length one dropping on Tuesday, and then the normal episode. Yes, next week's going to be fun. We've got Star Wars stuff. So see you guys later.
Later. May the 4th be soon with you.
Yeah, it won't be too long. Right. May the 4th be with you.